Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for the Wisconsin Department of Revenue My Tax Account New User webinar. My name is Jordan Dietrich, and I'm one of the business tax lead workers in our Customer Service Bureau. Today, we're going to cover the initial and two-step login, the filing and paying of sales and use tax and withholding tax, including covering the WT6 deposit report and the WT7 annual reconciliation, as well as the submission of W-2s and 1099s. We'll also cover some other areas where our customer service representatives receive the most questions. Speaking of questions, if you have any during today's webinar, please type them in the questions pane, and an agent will be on standby to reply to your question individually throughout the webinar. If you have questions in the future, or questions that may take a little more time to research or answer, please go to our website or call or email the Wisconsin Department of Revenue customer service team. A recording of this webinar will be available on our Wisconsin Department of Revenue training page shortly after the webinar. We've planned today's webinar for about an hour, and our presenters today are Tom Rabine, our Quality Assurance Coordinator, and Nicole Buckholtz, one of our business tax specialists in the Customer Service Bureau. Let's go ahead and start things off today with Tom.
Thank you, Jordan. And I'll add my welcome to the My Tax Account New User webinar. For today's webinar, we'll be working in a training and testing environment, and that might mean there's some differences in screen appearance that you might see. Please be aware if you're working along in My Tax Account, you're in a live environment, and we ask that you don't submit any returns or requests that you complete in this webinar. If you accidentally submit a return or request, please contact customer service at 608 261 5338 for assistance deleting the return or request. Before we log in, we'd like to point out some helpful resources you can access from the login page. First, you can ask Dory, our chatbot assistant, a My Tax Account question. Secondly, we have training videos available. If we look in the resources panel, you'll see that we have videos ranging from general. Let me click on the businesses here, such as, so let's get it open here, such as an overview of my tax account, to specific, such as filing a sales and use tax return. Let's head back to the My Tax Account portal. There's a lot of stuff that you can see here in the portal that you can do without even logging into My Tax Account. And since there are a lot of items available, we have a search function here. So if you do have something specific that you're looking for that you need to do that doesn't require you to log into My Tax Account, you can use the filter here to easily search for a very specific item that you're looking for on this page. Also on this page, note that you can reset your password by following the forgot username or password link, or have your username emailed to you. All right, let's log into my tax account. We'd like to mention that although you may have until the last day of the month to file your return, it might be beneficial to try and log into my tax account ahead of time. That way, if you have any difficulty with receiving a security code, you'd then have time to resolve any issues before filing and paying your taxes. Internal servers and the security settings of your business email system may delay or even prevent you from receiving the security code via email. If your business has such email filters, you'll want to add MTA support at wisconsin.gov as a trusted email address. Contact your computer support area or your email provider for assistance. That email address again is MTA support at wisconsin.gov. Please don't send questions to this email address, as this email box isn't monitored for responses. It's only used for electronic delivery of security codes. Now, if this was your first time logging into My Tax Account, you would now be asked to set up a delivery method for your security code via text, email, or an authenticator app. If you have it set up to receive your security code as text or email, the default will be to send it via text, and that's what we're seeing here. If you wish to receive an email, click on the More Security Code Delivery Options link to have us send a security code via email. Prior to clicking Confirm after loading in a security code here, we're going to click on Trust this device. By doing so, a subsequent entry of a security code wouldn't be required unless you log in with a computer that you've never used before or you've deleted your cookies or cache. All right, so we've got a security code entered. We've checked the box for Trust this device. Let's click on Confirm to log in. So this is what the home page on the My Tax Account typically will looks like. You'll notice we have a business tax registration account, sales and use tax, and withholding tax. Before we look at more specific items, just a couple of general navigation items I'd like to go over with you. If you click on a particular link, and I'll just pick this one at random here, if you wish to return home, the words My Tax Account at the top of the page are really your home button. So if I click here, that'll take you back to the home page. Also, if you do click into a link, for example, and you're on a different page, if you wish to go back a page, you can use the back arrow on your browser, or quite frequently we'll have this link here to take you back a page. All right, let's go over the tabs here on the home page. I'll let you know what happens when you access them. First, I'll click on the Favorites tab. So we don't have a favorite set up, but if your duties include maybe only just filing the sales and use tax and you don't need to look at the other business tax accounts that may be available, you can then click on Manage after clicking on the Favorites tab. Click on Sales and Use, click OK, and then when you log in, this is the only account that you'll see to be able to file and pay sales and use tax returns. You still have access to all of the other accounts, but it's just you've set up a favorite. You can undo that, and let's do that now. I'll just unclick sales and use tax, click OK, and summary. So without any favorites set up, you'll default to the summary page. So as I mentioned earlier, what we have here listed is the business tax registration account, which isn't really a tax account, but what the business tax registration account does is it tracks your business tax registration, whether it's current, and allows you to pay your business tax registration renewal fee from My Tax Account. For the sales and use tax account and withholding tax account, you'll notice that the filing frequency is listed here, which is an important piece of information for each of those accounts. And you'll notice the actions that we can take here for each of those accounts as well. And we'll be digging into those a little bit more deeply later on in the webinar. Let's take a look at the Action Center tab. So here's where it will indicate if you have any unread messages or letters for each of the accounts. We'll click on the Settings tab. One of the main things on the Settings tab that I'd like to show you is the default for a business is to receive mail via paper, via the US mail. If you wish to change this to an electronic delivery only, you can click on the paper option, and then you can take a look at the bullet points here to look at the terms and conditions of receiving electronic notices. And you can click on electronic, and click on Save in order to receive those notices moving forward electronically. For the purposes of the webinar, we'll just keep that at paper for now. And the next tab is the More tab. Let's take a look there. If I click on the More tab, you'll see several panels available. And the first panel in the upper left is Payments and Returns. So let's take a look at what we can do there. The first link is Request a Payment Plan. So that's primarily used for accounts that are in collections. Manage Payments and Returns. I'll click into that. While this link sounds like it's where you would go for filing return, it's actually more useful for researching past payments or returns. Let's go back for, we'll recommend for filing and paying a return to click on the specific account to file, and we'll do that a little bit later in the webinar. View Payment Breakdown is primarily used for accounts that are in collections. Pay real estate transfer fees by municipalities. View or cancel scheduled payments. Let's click on that. This is where you would go if you wanted to cancel or delete a payment that has not been processed yet. So if you've made a payment and wish to delete it, you can do it by following that link. The next panel over is View Letters. If you need a copy of your seller's permit or your business tax registration certificate before contacting us, check your letters. Check your letters folder, and it's likely that those copies of those would be in the letters folder. Here's where you can view your messages, and you can also manage your email subscriptions as well, so that you can change what type of messages you receive from us via email. The lower left panel is submissions. I'll click on that, but right now you don't really see a lot here because there hasn't been any payments or returns submitted. We'll come back to this once we've submitted returns and payments, and you'll be able to see that there's pending submissions. There aren't any processed submissions here either because there haven't been any processed returns or payments. And notice there's also a deleted here, so you can track to see if you've deleted any payments or returns. So we'll come back to this page a little bit later. The W-2 1099 submissions panel. Nicole will discuss that in more detail in the withholding section of the webinar. And in the names and addresses panel, we'll click on Manage Names and Addresses. You can add a DBA name for your business if you wish, and update an address for the business if you wish. All right, let's return home. The next link that we're going to take a look at is Manage My Profile. And on the profile page, it's what you would typically see on a profile page. It lists what your username is, your name, which you can update, the email, the profile email address, which you can also update here, a phone contact number. Here's where you can go to change your password if you wish, update your secret question, and then change your two-step settings. And that's for the delivery of your security code. And I'll click on that. And you can see here where you can use an authentication app, text, or email. If you do need to update this, you'll just click on the X and delete the old email address, for example, and then add the new one. All right. The next tab in Manage My Profile is that same Action Center tab. And let's move on to the More tab. There's a lot of stuff here to take a look at. You'll notice in the upper left-hand corner, the first panel is Request Additional Access. And the first link is Request Access to an Account. And I'll give you a little scenario on why you would use this. This is where you would add access to an additional business tax account in My Tax Account. So for example, as a new business, you may just be registered for sales and use tax. As your business grows, you now need to hire employees. So you'd register for that withholding tax account via the online registration on the Department of Revenue website. Once you've been assigned a withholding tax account, this link is where you'd go to add the withholding account to your existing My Tax Account profile. So I'll just go into this so you can get a look at it. So you'd request access to an account. Since it's a business account, that's what we'll choose here. We'll click on Next. And this is a verification page, basically proving that you're associated with the business, and we should add that business tax account for you. So at this point, you would choose a tax type, and we'll just use the scenario that we just talked about earlier, sales and use tax. And then to prove your association, we'll be asking for a total tax due from a prior return. And if we take a look at a little bit more information here, the amount should be from one of the 3 most recently filed returns. You can do that, or you can put in a letter ID. And if I click here for a little more information, these are the types of letters that you can use the letter ID in order to verify that you're associated with the business to add that business tax account. Once you do fill out this and submit it, you'll get immediate access to that business tax account. All right, let's head back to Manage My Profile. And the next link is Request Access to a Third-Party Account. This is where a third-party preparer would go to request access to your tax accounts. This would also be used by individuals that own multiple entities and would like to manage all the entities under a single My Tax Account profile. The next panel is Payment Sources and Manage Payment Sources. Let's click on that. So if you have a saved payment source, this is where you'd go to delete that payment source if you change banks, for example. You can also add a payment source here, but most of the time that will be done when you make the first payment, and we'll look at an example of that when we pay the sales tax from the return that we file. Here we have View Messages again and Manage Email Subscriptions. Now let's go to the Manage Access panel. And the first link there is Manage My Access. So if I click on that, one of the things that you'll see on this page is the level of access that you have for the business. So right now we're logged in as the master account holder. So we're the master account holder for the business. So we'll actually have more functions available to us as the master account holder. You could limit your own access here and delete accounts, but the most important thing on this page is it indicates that you are the master. The next link is Manage My Users Access, and I'll click on that. And you can see we have a little explanation here, basically saying most people aren't going to use this particular link or function. This function really would only be used by a larger accounting firm. As an example, if they have like 50 employees servicing 1,000 client accounts, they can create groups of clients and assign those groups to specific employee user accounts that they create. But most people are going to use the third-party access system. Let's click on Manage Other Users Access. If you're the master account holder for the business, you can view all My Tax accounts registered for the business and manage a user's access level. So you can see there is another user that has registered for the business, and they are an account manager. And as the master, I could limit or delete access to their profile. Next is Manage Third-Party Access. Again, if you are the master account holder for the business, you can manage the access for third parties that have access to your accounts. Delete my profile. If you click on that, this is where you would basically be closing your My Tax account. And there's a close accounts link here. And you're going to see this particular link. You saw it on the home page. It's at the account level when we take a look at sales and use tax, for example. But let's look at it now. If I click on close accounts, what that's going to do is allow us to close a business tax account. So it's not closing the business, but what you're doing is you're choosing a specific business tax account. And if we clicked on withholding tax, for example, that would then ask us to ask you to enter in a closure date so I can close business tax accounts from the My Tax account. Let's go back. Here again is that search submissions link, which we've already looked at. And log on activity basically just shows you when you've logged into the account. All right, let's go back to the home page. And let's take a closer look at these sales and use tax accounts. So from the home page, you'll be able to file, pay, view returns, and that's what we're going to be doing next. That same view submissions link here is here. You can view mail by account level, and you can also close the account here too. But let's take a look at file, pay, view returns. And once I click on a specific account, there's more features available for you. Let's take a look at those in the upper right-hand portion of it. And the first of those is view account attributes. This basically tells you what the account number is, start date, and the current filing frequency. And here's the filing and payment history. Probably not too much value on our account here because it's kind of new and it shows that we've only filed and paid a single sales and use tax return. But if you have a history here, you can, if you wanted to go back, for example, and look at all of your sales tax returns for tax year 2021, you can just enter a start date, end date, and search, and it'll just give you the sales and use tax returns for that specific year, for example. So it's a handy search tool to see what you filed and what you have paid for a given account. Here you're able to appeal a late filing penalty or fee if you wish. Here again is the close account function. And here's the request extension to file link. Keep in mind a couple of things when filing for an extension. The request needs to be done prior to the due date, and the payment is still due timely. And here again is that same view or cancel scheduled payments. So we have that link scattered throughout the site. All right, let's take a look at filing and paying a sales and use tax return. So as we mentioned earlier, we're a quarterly filer, and we filed and paid the first quarter, and the second quarter is due by the end of July. So for the second quarter, we're going to click on File Now. And this is the first page in filing the sales and use tax return, commonly known as the Form ST-12. Before we file, I'll point out some handy resources that you have here. If you want to watch the training video on how to file an ST-12, you can click here. The instructions for the ST-12 on how to file, the written instructions, the link is here. Common questions for sales and use tax is here. And a sales tax rate chart, the link is here. So the sales and use tax rate chart will show what the sales tax rate is for all of the counties in the state of Wisconsin. Now the first question is, do you plan to report zero on every line? And the default is no. But if you did have a period where you didn't have any sales to report and you do need to file a zero return, let's take a quick look at that. So if I click on yes, and then next, you'll notice it fills in all zeros for me, and I can just submit at this point in time. That's just filing a return in the amount of zero. Let's go back though, and we will file a return where we do have amounts to work with. So click on next to continue. And here's where we start entering in our sales. So for total sales, I'll just put in $50,000, and what you'll see here, my tax account starts automatically calculating for you. So if you do have any subtractions, you can put those in on lines 2, 3, 4, and 5. If I click on the word other here for line 5, one common subtraction that you might have is if you, in line 1, if line 1 includes sales tax, you can delete or add the sales tax in on line 5, so it'll subtract off of your total where the sales tax will be calculated. All right. So let's move on to the next page. And this will indicate purchases subject to state use tax. We'll leave that at 0 in our example. If you do have more questions on use tax, you can follow the use tax information link to the common questions page for use tax. We'll click on next. And this page is the county tax page. So do you have any county tax to report? Most Wisconsin counties do have a county tax, so the default here is yes. And if you take a look here, our business is actually located in Milwaukee County, and the system knows that. It is located in Milwaukee, and you can see that it pre-populates for counties that you've already filed for sales tax in that particular county. So if you do have sales in a county other than Milwaukee County in our example, for example, you can just click in the empty box underneath Milwaukee, and you'll get a drop down of all of the counties in the state of Wisconsin that have a county tax, and you can choose those, and you can enter as many as you wish. We'll keep it simple here. We'll put all of our sales in Milwaukee County. And again, we didn't have any purchases subject to use tax, so that we'll leave at 0 as well. So we've got our sales in Milwaukee County, and we'll click on next. And then it asks, do you have any city of Milwaukee tax to report? So this is a relatively new, as of January 1st of 2024, there is now a city of Milwaukee sales and use tax. Since it is new, if you do want to know more about the city of Milwaukee sales and use tax, I'll click over to our main website here. If you take a look at our website and you want to know more about it, right on the home page, there's a City of Milwaukee sales tax link that will take you to a common questions page that will cover a lot of questions that people have about the new City of Milwaukee sales tax. All right, let's click back. And since all of our sales were in the City of Milwaukee as well, we'll change the default here to yes. And we'll put those sales subject to city sales tax in the appropriate spot. So we've got that same $50,000 in sales subject to the Milwaukee City sales tax. Click next. And then it asks, do you have any stadium tax to report? There has not been any stadium tax for several years, so the default is no, and we'll leave that default to no and click next. And that will take us to the summary page. So it'll summarize what we've filed here and the appropriate taxes that have been calculated. You'll notice that it automatically will be calculating an estimated discount. If you file and pay your sales and use tax on time, you're eligible for a discount. All right, do you want a confirmation email? We'll answer yes to that. And looks like we're ready to submit. So I'll click on submit. I'll agree to the terms and conditions. So that takes us to the confirmation page. So we have a confirmation number for filing the return. But what we haven't done yet is we haven't made the payment. Filing and paying sales and use tax is a two-step process. You'll file the sales tax return, get a confirmation number, and then you'll make a payment and receive a confirmation number for that as well. So what we'll choose here is we'll choose make a payment. And then we've got three options here. One of them is direct debit, where you'll enter a routing and account number for a checking or savings account, which is what the vast majority of people use. There are other payment methods, such as via credit card. There's fees involved with that. Or you can still create a printable voucher. If you follow this path, a voucher will be created and added to the letters folder that we looked at earlier, and you can print that off and send in the voucher that is created in the letters folder. We'll choose direct debit, click next, and it knows that we're making a return payment. So we'll click next again. And since there isn't a payment source here, we'll add a payment source to make the payment. And for training and testing purposes, I can just automatically populate a bank. And I'll just put in a fake number here for the purposes of the webinar. And once I enter in the routing and account information, I'll say that it's a checking account. And here's where I can save that payment source for future use. So I'll say, yes, I do want to save this. Next, we'll choose a payment date. If I wanted to, I could have this payment come out at the end of the month because the return and payment aren't due until the end of July. But we'll keep the payment date as today's date for the purposes of the webinar. We'll confirm the amount. And there's an important point here in the notes. It says you must authorize payment before 4 p.m. Central Time on the payment due date for timely payment. So if you are making the payment and it is the due date, I do need to make it before 4 p.m. Central Time to be eligible for the on-time discount and to prevent any interest. Okay, looks like we're ready to submit this payment. And now we have our second confirmation number for making the payment. Again, sales and use tax. You get a confirmation number for filing and a confirmation number for making the payment. So if I return home now, and if I click on View Submissions, what we should see here now is a pending tab indicating that there is a pending return payment and return for the second quarter. If I needed to delete those for whatever reason, you could begin that process here. One more thing I'm going to show you before I turn you over to Nicole for withholding tax is if I need to amend a previously processed sales and use tax return, I would click on the account. And let's say if I needed to amend the first quarter's return, for example, I could click on View or Amend Return. So again, this is a previous return that's already processed. And then I would click on Amend. And what I would do now is I would just change the change or correct the numbers to the correct totals for that particular period. It's really all going to look the same as filing a sales and use tax return, except there's an additional step where the text box will show up where we're going to ask you to input a reason as to why you're amending the sales and use tax return. So we're not going to complete that. Just wanted to point out that you can amend a sales and use tax return from the My Tax account as well. All right, that's what I have for sales and use tax. I'm going to turn it over to Nicole, and she'll talk to you a little bit about withholding tax.
Thank you, Tom. Now we'll take a look at filing a WT6 deposit report and the WT7 annual reconciliation. From the home page, you're going to click on File, Pay, View Returns for the withholding tax account. If you're an annual filer for withholding tax, you're not required to file WT6 reports during the year, so you can just file the WT7 at the end of the year without filing a WT6 report. In most cases, you'll want to file and pay the WT6 by locating the File WT6 Return option listed on the page. If you need to file a WT6 with a zero amount, you can click Yes for the first option and continue. We'll enter an amount for withholding. If you're just filing without making a payment, you can choose the No option for making a payment. In most cases, a payment is made while filing, so we'll continue to file and pay by clicking Next. In our example, we're going to pay by direct debit now. But let's take a look at the other two options first. To pay by credit card, you'll need to submit the return and choose Make a Payment from the confirmation page to pay by credit card. To mail a payment, you'll need to submit the return and then choose Create a Printable Voucher from the confirmation page. For payment, we're going to use the saved payment source from paying the sales and use tax. If you want, you can choose a payment date for the future, but for our example, we're just going to choose today's date. So you confirm the amount. We'll hit the Next button, and then it does give you that option if you want a confirmation email, and then we'll just hit Submit. You also have to agree to the attestation, and this is your confirmation page. Notice how this is different from filing and paying sales and use tax. For withholding tax, we have a single confirmation number for filing the return and making the payment. And we'll press OK. Let's review how to amend a previously filed WT6. So we'll go to this one. You'll click on the date. Up in the top right-hand corner, File, View, or Amend Return. View or Amend Return. And then if we did, up in the top right-hand corner, you also have to hit that Amend button again. You can only amend lower. If we needed to adjust this to 150, you would do that. You'd put in an explanation here. However, if you needed to file or an additional amount, you would actually just file another WT6 to make the total amount because we already have the $200 there. But let's return to the withholding account to review how to file the WT7 annual reconciliation. So from the home page, again, you're going to click on File, View, or Amend Returns, or File, View, and Pay Returns. Then we're going to click on the File WT7 Return link. Please note the filing tips section where you can get more information, including the form instructions, common questions, EFW to file transfer, and of course the withholding tax update link. Your 2024 WT7 annual withholding reconciliation and wage and information statements aren't due until January 31st of 2025. But let's do an overview of how it's done. We'll offer several webinars in January of 2025 as refreshers as well. First, let's discuss the scenario where you have no withholding tax to report on your WT7 reconciliation, but have W-2s to report. For this scenario, you'll want to answer no to the question, do you have Wisconsin withholding to report? We'll submit the WT7 with all zeros. We still need the W-2s, and you can submit them to us from the My Tax account from the W-2 1099 entry link from the More tab on the home page. We'll show you that in a few minutes. Before we continue, let's discuss the submission of W-2s and 1099s for Wisconsin. If you have 1099s with Wisconsin withholding tax, you would report those on the W-7. If you have 1099s to submit to us that don't have withholding, don't report those 1099s on the W-7. Please only list the information returns on the W-7 withholding reconciliation that have Wisconsin withholding tax. We do still need those information returns. However, they just don't need to be listed on the W-7. If you have W-2s or 1099s that you do need to submit to us that don't have withholding, we'll show you how to do that a little later. If you have further questions, please use the links in the filing tips section on the page or call customer service at 608-261-5338 for more information. Now let's keep our example simple and file a WT7 with just a single W-2 with withholding. So we'll answer yes to this question. Do you have Wisconsin withholding to report? After we click yes, you see there are several options to send the W-2s to the department. The first option is to key the W-2 right now while we're filing the W-T7 by checking the My Tax Account box. The second option is the File Transfer. Please note, you'd select File Transfer if you've already entered the wage and information returns using the Enter W-2 1099 information link prior to filing the W-T7. Otherwise, you would select File Transfer if you're going to upload an electronic file to us. If you need further assistance or have additional questions about electronic file transfers, click on the EFW File Transfer link on this page, or please just call customer service. If you have 9 or less than a single type of information return, you can mail them to us without penalty, and you could use the paper option. For our example, we'll key in the W-2 while filing the W-T7. So the question, are you entering any W-2s? We will answer yes. Then you scroll down and you add the W-2. And then we'll fill in all the information for the employee's W-2s. We'll want to include the Social Security number, the name, address, and then you'll scroll down and you will want to key in the financial information for the employee's W-2. But for our example today, we're just going to key in box 1, and then we're going to scroll down and enter in the state wage information. This section where we'll enter the most important information on the W-2, the state wages and the state income withheld. And now we're going to click the Add button as we have completed keying that in. From here, we can click the pencil icon to edit the W-2 we just entered, or we can click the double paper icon copy to copy the previous W-2, or we can click the X button and delete the W-2 altogether. If we had additional W-2s to key in, we could click the Add W-2, but for our purposes, we only have one, so we'll click Next. We don't have any 1099s with withholding to report, so we'll click Next through the 1099 miscellaneous, the 1099 NECs, and lastly, the 1099Rs. Because we chose to key in the W-2s in the My Tax Account, lines 1 through 5 are already pre-filled for us based on the information we entered in the previous steps. Since this form isn't due until January of next year, we'll just save this W-2 without submitting. So what I'm going to do is save the draft and finish later. Now we're going to go back to our home page and access the Enter W-2 1099 information from the More tab. So as Tom stated, if you ever need to get to the home screen, you just press that revenue up there on the left. That brings you right to our home page. So from here, we're going to click on the More tab and then the Enter W-2 1099 information. If you need to report 1099s with W-2s or 1099s actually without withholding withholding or file a corrected W-2 or 1099, you can also do that by using the enter W-2 1099 information link. This tool can be especially helpful for those of you that don't have a withholding tax account with us, but need to submit W-2s or 1099s to the department that don't have withholding. Keep in mind, this satisfies the state filing requirement, not the federal filing requirement for information returns. We'd also like to note these forms are not printable. So let's see what it looks like to key in a 1099 NEC. You'll click the year, and then you're going to click the next button until we get to the 1099 NEC section. And just like before, we'll click the Add button, and we'll key in the recipient's information. Social Security number. And then address, just like the W-2. And then we'll scroll down and we'll enter the financial information for the form. All right, so once we have the information keyed in, we'll click the Add button. Now, if you have several forms to key in, or if you get interrupted while working on this, you can always click the Save Draft and continue editing, which will save your draft of your entries in case you would have to take a phone call or the app simply times out. If you're going to leave and continue later, choose the Finish Later option, and you can still come back and pick up where you left off. You'll be able to pick it up later by accessing the Search Submissions link from your More tab on the home page. So that's what we'll do. We'll finish later. Again, we'll get back to the home page. And how to access that saved draft, we're going to go to the More tab, and on the left, Search Submissions. And here are our two saved entries. So we'll click on the link up in the top right-hand corner, Continue Editing, and that picks us up right where we left off. So if we want to submit this, we continue next. All the way through, there is our 1099, and then finally, the Submit button. Again, agreeing to that attestation, and it's submitted. And here's our confirmation number. Well, that's it for withholding, so let's send it back to Jordan for a few closing remarks.
Thank you, Nicole and Tom, for presenting today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you have any more questions, please use the contact information on the screen. We're going to stick around for a few minutes to finish answering the questions that have come into the queue. Just a reminder that there will be a brief exit survey when you leave the webinar. But before we go, we just have a couple of reminders. Whenever your email or contact information changes, please update it in your profile in My Tax Account. Please do not share your login information or password with any other My Tax Account users. If you'd like another person to have access to your business tax accounts, please have them register for their own My Tax Account login. You can have as many logins under a business as you'd like. Thanks again, and we hope you have a great day.